Mike Berners-Lee, The Burning Question, We Can't Burn Half the World's Oil, Coal, and Gas. So how do we quit? In The Burning Question, Mike Berners-Lee shines a light on the critical issue of climate change, a topic that, despite being backed by scientific evidence, still faces skepticism and denial from various quarters. In recent years, our planet has endured extreme weather events, record hot and wet conditions, and rapid climate shifts. The book breaks down complex concepts and issues like the role of government pledges, the drawbacks of green technology, and the impediments that hinder individuals from taking action against climate change. The central motif of the book is the urgent need to regulate carbon emissions, shift investments from fossil fuels to sustainable technologies, and engage citizens as everyday leaders.
The reality of climate change. It is no longer a theory that the Earth's climate is changing rapidly. In recent years, various unusual weather patterns have been reported worldwide. A rainfall occurred in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, having a temperature of 109 degrees Fahrenheit, and England had the wettest year on record. Scientific institutions worldwide confirm that human activities' greenhouse gas emissions are the primary cause. Since the 19th century, it has been known that additional greenhouse gases in the air will warm the planet. Carbon dioxide and methane are among the gases that have been released into the atmosphere, continuously accumulating. Recent research shows that man-made carbon dioxide emissions are exponentially increasing. The effects of climate change are real, and it is time to take action. Climate change tipping points. In 2009, world leaders agreed to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius, considered safe at the time. However, the current 0.8 degrees Celsius increase in temperature has caused more damage than expected, such as the loss of 1/3 of Arctic Ocean summer sea ice and more frequent catastrophic floods. The danger lies in tipping points in our ecosystem that could trigger uncontrollable climatic processes, such as the emission of greenhouse gases stored in Arctic soils and the melting of sea ice. These processes cause positive feedback loops, which could flood the air with an uncontrollable stream of greenhouse gases. The scientific community is growing increasingly concerned about hitting these tipping points, and veteran climatologist Jim Hansen has called allowing the world to get 2 degrees Celsius warmer as a prescription for disaster. The realities of our carbon budget. The world has too much oil, not too little. Although a 2-degree temperature increase is risky for our planet's climate, recent developments raise doubts that we'll even be able to keep the temperature below that, largely due to our constant consumption of fossil fuels. Carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for so long that the ultimate temperature increase of the planet will not depend on when we emit carbon gases, but how much we emit in total over the years. Our all-time carbon budget, which would give us a 50% chance of staying within the 2-degree target, is around 3,700 billion tons of carbon dioxide, more than half of which we've already used. The major energy companies have ready-to-use fossil fuels equaling 3,000 billion tons of carbon dioxide, nearly twice our remaining carbon budget. Staying within the budget would mean not using the equivalent of $27 trillion in fuel reserves that have already been extracted. The pitfalls of sustainable development. Most people believe that climate conferences and green technology will solve climate change issues. However, the government's failure to meet their set targets and the rebound effects of green technology make this far-fetched. The governments that attended the 2009 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Copenhagen made promises that they haven't implemented, leading to a rise in temperature to 3.3 degrees. The more significant problem is the rebound effects of green technology, which have cancelled out the positive effects intended. When something is produced more cheaply, it is used more, and improving energy efficiency does not necessarily reduce energy usage. The rebound effects refer to the use of the saved energy and money in producing new products, which has an energy impact. Eventually, this cancels out the original energy gains. Therefore, sustainable development is not just about using renewable energy but also about responsible consumption and production patterns. Climate change misinformation. Climate change is a complex issue that often leaves people in disbelief and confusion, making it difficult for them to take immediate action. Fossil fuel companies intentionally misinform the public by spending billions of dollars on lobby groups, PR agencies, and think tanks to persuade politicians and citizens that climate change doesn't exist or is too expensive to solve. This propaganda has taken many different forms, including TV advertising, textbooks, and online comments attacking climate change. While the most severe impacts of climate change may not be visible at present, it's imperative that we take action to safeguard our planet and future generations. Global constraints and a sustainable future. The only way forward to tackle climate change is to implement global constraints on carbon emission, with annual emissions reduction of 5 to 6% starting in 2016. It will require moving away from dirty energies and devaluing fossil fuels and related infrastructure. This will lead to a temporary but hard-hitting global recession. However, accepting this economic setback and shifting our attention from short-term economic growth to long-term criteria may actually improve our lives, since economic growth is not an accurate measure of human progress. Short-term growth happens at the expense of the long-term and depends on the natural capital of our planet, which damages our natural capital. Therefore, it's time to focus on long-term sustainable solutions. Divest to counter fossil fuel politics. To counter the fossil fuel industry's political influence, divestment is an essential step towards a low-carbon future. Divesting from fossil fuel reserves and infrastructure is necessary to reduce society's massive investments in them. Campaigners, pension funds, and cultural institutions have already started taking action by canceling their sponsorships and divesting, which sent a strong message to political and business leaders. Without divestment, the carbon bubble will continue to grow, leading to an even larger economic collapse in the future. Investors need to realize the carbon bubble's potential burst and invest accordingly to avoid catastrophic repercussions on citizens worldwide. Saving the planet. Global carbon emissions can only be regulated and contained effectively through a mandatory, global system, according to scientists. Additionally, green technology needs to be prioritized through key initiatives such as the implementation of photovoltaic panels and carbon capture technology to support energy efficiency and renewable sources. Only then can we fight the effects of the industrial age and prevent compromising the environment. The global community must unite as one entity to ensure a future for generations to come. Taking small steps for big change. Taking action to mitigate climate change is more attainable than we think. The process starts with spreading awareness, and every individual has a unique role in fostering change. By taking action as everyday leaders, we can take steps such as influencing policymakers or pushing for change through our investments. Even seemingly small actions such as reducing our carbon footprint or challenging misinformation about climate change can make a big difference. The effects of our actions have a ripple effect that can touch others, including influential figures, which can lead to significant change. It's important to remember that the process of change is not achieved overnight but through a series of small steps. By committing to taking these small actions, we can work towards the ultimate goal of addressing climate change.
In conclusion, the burning question emphasizes the importance of collective efforts by governments, businesses, and individuals to combat climate change. Beware of misinformation from corporate interests, make a conscious effort to reduce our carbon footprints, invest in cleaner alternatives, and pressure public representatives to enact meaningful change. The book highlights the primary challenge of staying within agreed carbon emissions limits, in the face of persistent consumption of fossil fuels and the temptation of trillions in unutilized reserves. The future requires a significant shift from short-term economic gain to long-term sustainable growth in order to foster improved global well-being and protect our planet's natural capital.